Israeli media said an attack on Iran is imminent. When you see that ... US bases, we have already transmitted what Iran's defense minister said on the air. He had said that the US could strike his bases, but if this last negotiation doesn't lead to anything, what happened to Costa all of a sudden? Why did it evolve to such a point? Why did he say that the US should evacuate its embassy in Iraq, and in fact, its families at many points? Why now, Mr. Meat?
Let me explain the reason for that. The International Atomic Energy Agency announced that at this time today, Turkey time, it was convened to take a decision on Iran. And no decision has been made yet, but there is a 12-hour break. This is the next program before we start this broadcast. There's a 12-hour window. When was it?
When was the break, Mr. Meat?
For the sake of calculating 12 hours, there was a break around 11 p.m. for 12 hours. And the International Atomic Energy Agency convened 12 hours later. Whether it's nuclear energy or there will probably be a detailed condemnation report on uranium enrichment, there will be a condemnation. That's why, and the mobilization of US airplanes, supply planes in the Middle East, and the evacuation of embassies in the Middle East, which we are seeing now in the Middle East, is the result of this atomic energy. The condemnation he will give is expected to be followed by a possible condemnation in 12 hours. With this condemnation, and probably the one you are referring to, which is scheduled to take place at Amman on June 15th. The sixth round of US-Iran nuclear negotiations will probably not take place after these 12 hours. What matters is the condemnation issued by the International Atomic Energy Agency. And after this condemnation, probably Trump will be able to, in the official diplomatic sense, either together with Israel on its own or separately, is no longer known.
Trump wants to give up uranium enrichment, right? This is exactly what Trump wanted. Let me tell you Turkey's latest statement, and then you can continue, please. We will not give in to bullying, he said. We will never wait for their approval to reduce our nuclear research to zero, and then wait for their approval to buy nuclear materials needed in industry, medicine, agriculture, and other sciences. We will not accept it. It is already seen from the beginning that they will not compromise, because there is such a ground. The negotiations are going on and on like this.
So the main issue here, when I consulted with people who are familiar with this deal, I was told something like this. The main issue here is Iran's suspension of uranium enrichment and the establishment of an international consortium in the region, including Saudi Arabia and possibly Russia, and the supervision of this consortium, to make a distribution from this consortium to the countries that will engage in nuclear activities under it. It is also a matter of Iran getting its share from this. But when we look at it from the Iranian point of view, Iran has not received any technology from any foreign country, but its nuclear activities are its own. I would like to remind you once again, one of the most important academic departments in Iran is nuclear physics. These chapters are very valuable, and you can't just turn off the switch because Iran wants the US to turn off the switch, or because the US wants the US to turn off the switch, and destroy some of the centrifuges, or destroy some of the centrifuges, or destroy some of the nuclear facilities here. It is not possible to, how shall we say, dismantle it. There is the example of Libya, where what is on the table is the complete bombing and destruction of Iran's nuclear activities.
But Iran has never said that it does not favor the Libyan example.
It considers it a cause for war, and there is also the example of the Arab Emirates. The Arab Emirates is a nuclear activity, but it is used for civilian purposes. That is to say, it is more US-led and US-supervised, and especially in a way that does not pose a threat to Israel, because Israel's security is decisive here for the US, so it will continue negotiations with the EU and the US and the European Union and the United States of America. And phone traffic is probably going on right now, although we are looking at the high-pitched statements.
I guess you will, Mr. Meat.
Can I read?
Is there such a thing?
Do you have one teacher? We always see teachers, but no one tells us about it. There is the issue of water here in Arak. There is a heavy water plant in Arak, which is called Heavy Water. There is a research unit here in Kerek. The uranium you see here in Isfahan. Translation, or a processing plant. In Isfahan, see, it is dismantled. There is uranium enrichment activity here in Natanz. In Kashan, there are centrifuges in this region, and in Fordov, Iran is enriching uranium in this region. Here, as I said, we are only talking about Iran's issue, but of course, especially for our viewers, we have not talked much so far. I would like to bring up a short issue that has not been touched upon. Now, those who have been following this Middle East for a long time know. In 1986, there was a nuclear spy, Mordecai Vanunu. He sold the nuclear activities of the coast, especially Dimona, to the British newspaper, the Sunday Times, for money. Some 60 photographs were found to be publishable, and presumably he had given permission for them to be published, along with the information and documents he had provided, but some of these documents are not disclosed. Also, especially my follow-up, at the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, or SIPRI for short. He estimates that Israel has between 90 and 300 nuclear weapons. So, of course, everyone talks about Iran because it is producing nuclear weapons here. But let's open Israel's laundry. Israel has been blocking commercial satellite imagery since 2020. I know that there is construction work going on at the Negev Nuclear Research Center near Dimona. At least we can see it from the satellite some of the time. As I said, this Mordecai Vanunu leaked this to the British press in 1986. In 2015, it was on the agenda again in 2008. Now here are the details. It shows that Israel has air, land, and sea-based delivery systems for its nuclear arsenal, which means it has delivery systems. According to this report, the bombs it can be dropped from F-16 and F-15 aircraft and is likely to be based at Tel Nof Air Base in central Israel or in the Negev Desert. It is thought to have been stored near Air Force bases, such as Hatzerim Air Base in Hatzerim, Syria. This is especially for you, Hatzerim Air Base. In the southern region of Israel, the air power of the American forces was only actually a support after the occupation of Gaza began, for the purpose of Hatzerim Air Base, an American air base in Israel, which they claim to be there for training purposes, but which is actually an air base. Here too, there is a storage of nuclear weapons. Now, when Israel sent 6 F-16s from Tel Nof to the UK for an exercise in 2019, an American official at the time was a blabbermouth. He called it Israel's nuclear fleet. When we put these pieces together, again, we can see from the report that Israel can launch nuclear weapons with Jericho ballistic missiles with Black Bats, and that these missiles, Silot Misha Air Base near Zechariah, about 25 kilometers west of Jerusalem. Again, let me say this. In this context, Israel also includes 5 German-made Dolphin-class diesel-electric submarines operating in Haifa port in its nuclear activities. May have equipped him to use it, the SIPRI report says. Once again for the newcomers. According to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, Israel has between 90 and 300 nuclear warheads. Now, we are bringing the Iranian threat, the nuclear threat, as Israel or the Western press, but Israel is a threat to all countries in the region, including Turkey, not least Iran. While Iran is sending a welcoming or positive signal in terms of sitting down at a table with the International Atomic Energy Agency and finding a break or opening it up to inspection or transparency, and who is going to stop Israel, which has been turned into a nuclear power by the US or by the West, just like the newspaper?